Welcome to another episode of The Man Who Woke Up the Buddha. This is episode 11, although if you read the first couple or listen to them, you can probably jump in about anywhere without getting too lost. This episode is called Sid and the Buddha, Pay It Forward, and Sid learns more than anyone needs to know about golf balls. In the last episode, Sid and his oncologist, Dr. J, discussed the fine points of his diagnosis, as well as the design features of titanium road bikes, while Di wondered how much longer she'd have Sid to kick around. Sid's outward nonchalance barely concealed his fascination with the technical details of his cancer and his determination to go mano a mano with the Midwest oncology specialists. As soon as he left Dr. Gioris's office, he began repeating the phrase anaplastic epidemoma to himself, until it rolled off his tongue as easily as, all we need is love, or get me another drink. Steroids and anti-seizure medicine be damned, although he was losing his taste for single malt. He'd asked his oncologist biking buddy for copies of his records and brain scans, and had Di drop him off at the town common, while she did errands of some sort. Doing errands being an expression that encompassed anything Di said she needed to do, when she wanted a break from doing what she actually needed to do, which these days meant spending more time than any person should have to spend with Sid. Shuffling a little unsteadily into the park, Sid walked over to his favorite bench, sat down, and began sifting through his medical records like an archaeologist who just exhumed his own mummy, which, as someone undoubtedly a pharaoh suggested, he probably had. An image of temple priests trying to extract some heretical thoughts from his cranium appeared so vividly in Sid's beleaguered brain that even the Buddha winced before they both regained their equanimity and Sid got to work. The oncologist's notes said that, before surgery, the tumor was the size of a golf ball. So the first thing Sid did was look up the size of a golf ball on his cell phone to make sure his favorite quack wasn't pulling a fast one on him. Sure enough, the diameter was 4.26 centimeters. He looked on the records and saw that, indeed, his malignant golf ball had been 4.3 centimeters and only slightly less spherical. Being a guy, he couldn't help himself. He looked up the diameter of a testicle and found out that after puberty, your run-of-the-mill testicle was 4.5 to 5.5 centimeters, the long way, and 2 centimeters or so the short way, a distinction that baffled him. Sid was of the generation that still didn't know what a centimeter was. Sounded like a bug of some kind. Instead of looking it up himself, he texted Zoe. She immediately texted back that 4.5 to 5.5 centimeters was approximately 1.7716535 inches. 5.5 centimeters was 2.1653543 inches. And 2 centimeters was 0.7874057 inches. He asked her why approximately. She answered, rounding error at the seventh integer in a fractional part. Why you want to know, Grandpa? Studying physics of my balls, he typed mischievously before deleting my and inserting golf. Naturally, he wanted to measure his, but didn't have a ruler that measured to the seventh integer. He started to do some research to find out how they measured the diameter of testicles in the first place, but quickly fled the forums devoted to male largesse when he came across a post by a woodworker who used a set of calipers to measure his. Moving on to the basic biology, he was amazed to find out how many parts there were to your everyday testicle. The tunica albuginea and septumo testis, tubuli recti, vasa afferentia, and the unfortunate-sounding caput epididymis. Sorry for my pronunciations of those. I'm glad I didn't go to medical school. Anyway, there were 12 parts in all, none of which were in English. The parts of golf balls were equally technical. Polybutadiene, responsive ionomeric casing, a urethane elastomer cover, and some random fillers. Undoubtedly proprietary knowledge. The dimples in golf balls, or the, quote, spherically tiled 352 tetrahedral dimple design, as they were fond of putting it, increased spin control for more consistent, penetrating ball flight. He was also pleased to learn that the performance of a golf ball was directly related to its stiffness, compression, resilience, and size. Suddenly, the whole game of golf made sense to him. It was like a meditation. Actually, meditation is more like a game of golf, the Buddha thought. You send your awareness as far out into the universe as possible, go pick it up, and do it again. It's sure more interesting than just sitting around cross-legged, the Buddha chuckled to himself. Having decided that this transcendent train of tumescent research had run its course, Sid put his cell phone down just as LJ came over to join him. LJ was a park person, a phrase Sid preferred to street person. LJ's philosophy of panhandling was what he referred to as paying it forward. Gotta pay it forward, Sid, otherwise nobody will pay you back. Sid considered LJ a marketing genius. People saw him with a rake and paid him to do some raking. They saw him with a shovel and paid him to do some shoveling. It was a technique every 10-year-old knew and forgot by the time they were teenagers. The only other tool of LJ's trade was a set of heavy-duty gloves, which he used to pick up trash all year round. The trash, Sid reflected, occasionally included receptacles for what formerly had been testicles, especially near the bushes after hot summer nights. But these days, the gloves were more essential than ever because most mornings LJ found himself picking up needles in dark corners of the parking garage or building entrances. Just like carrying a rake encouraged people to pay him to rake, seeing him picking up needles encouraged them to give him money to keep picking them up. The select board had considered putting him on the payroll, but realized that then people would stop giving him money. It was cheaper for the town and more lucrative for LJ to keep things just the way they were. LJ was, as usual, wearing a World War II bomber jacket that Sid coveted, oversized jeans cinched by a piece of rope at the waist, and high-top sneakers. Today he was carrying his heavy-duty turf rake. You see, Sid, they come along with those blower things, which are great for leaves, but sometimes you really got to rake it hard like this to get all the dead grass out. Paying it forward, LJ? Gotta pay it forward, Sid. Otherwise, no one pays you back. The Buddha looked closely at LJ. Clearly, the guy was every bit the enlightened being he was. But his soul colors were very young, 2 or 3 lifetimes at most. Still, he definitely had potential down the road. And how much is that going to cost me this morning, LJ? Stupid question, the Buddha thought. The question is how much it's going to cost LJ. You see, Sid, LJ was generous in his response, even though he considered questions like that a serious breach of etiquette. Like I've told you, I had my own landscaping business with my dad. We had all the tools, a couple of blowers, big truck, those mowers that you stand on. But, he kept abusing my mom, not hitting her so much. Well, he'd hit her too. And I tried to get her to leave, but she just wouldn't. And so, I could be living in the apartment above their garage, but I don't know. If I just had $1,000, I could get my own lawn tractor and drive it around to people's houses in the neighborhood. And Economic Services said they might be able to help me out there. This followed the basic plot line of LJ's story, although he never told it exactly the same way twice, which Sid appreciated. He had already decided that this would be one of LJ's good days. He reached in his pocket and took out a fistful of singles he kept there for just such an occasion, and started to hand them all over to LJ. $10 at least, the Buddha thought. No one realizes how expensive it is to talk to LJ every day, Sid thought. Make it 20, the Buddha thought. Sid put the singles back in his pocket, took out his wallet, and handed LJ a 20. Aw, thanks, man. God bless. It's people like you. LJ shook his head, at a loss for words. You heard about Billy? He said to fill the gap. I heard he was doing good, Sid said. Must be a couple of months now he's been going to the clinic. Well, he checked out. LJ shook his head. You don't check out from a methadone clinic, Sid objected. You just go every day. You mean he stopped going? Not that kind of checked out, LJ said, still shaking his head. Maybe next time, the Buddha thought, shaking his head. Oh, Sid said, shaking his head. Maybe next time. Maybe, LJ said. You believe in karma, Mr. Sid? Well, LJ, you're asking the right person. 'Cause I'm the Buddha now. Happened during my stroke. That's great, LJ said approvingly. You invented karma, right? Well, Sid said modestly. So is Billy going to come back as like a slug or something because of the drugs? We'll see, the Buddha thought. Maybe a butterfly. Oh, he was a good kid. Tough home life, like you, Sid said. maybe a butterfly. LJ started looking all around, thinking he might see Billy. By the way, LJ, they're probably going to open up my head again, Sid said to cheer him up. Aw, man, really? Sid could tell LJ was really bothered by this. Don't worry, there's just a little left in there they gotta take out. They're gonna drill a whole new hole? LJ was convinced Sid's first surgery had involved drilling a hole in his head and then suctioning out the bad stuff. They're actually just going to take out a few screws and then fold my scalp back again. Sid tilted his head forward to LJ so he could see. Wow, that's so cool! LJ stopped himself, thinking maybe that was not the right thing to say. No problem, Sid said, heading off any discomfort. But how do they keep stuff from spilling out when you're lying on the table? Sid laughed, more like an explosion of relief, as he realized that the answer was obvious. Because, LJ, he said, my mind is empty. The Buddha nodded. There was hope for Sid yet. Sid raised his head to look in LJ's eyes. They were hazel and always open. Now that he thought of it, he'd never seen LJ blink. The other thing was that his right eye was always open a little wider than his left, as if he had spotted a bear behind you that the other eye hadn't seen yet. Now they were both twinkling brightly as he laughed along with Sid. Thanks for opening your heart, mind, and any deeply held spiritual beliefs to Sid's teachings. This podcast is free, but to receive Sid and the Buddha's blessings and my undying appreciation, consider becoming a paid subscriber on Substack.